Hello, thought I would make a quick video about my garden, just a walk through and show around a little bit. I don't expect to be a content provider on an ongoing basis, but thought I'd do a walkthrough mostly for comments on what I might try differently. This is my primary garden plot. It's generally 20 by 20 feet, but I just put in a polytunnel and had to take up one of my rows. Took a tree out over here, and as soon as I can get the stump ground, I will gain 3 rows on this side. So that should be helpful. So you see here, lettuce is on this side, loose leaf is mainly what I grow, green star on the far end, and black-seeded Simpson, and this year I tried this purple lettuce. We've had several days of misting rain, and then the last 48 hours up to about 2 hours ago, continual rain, and the purple loose leaf didn't like the continual rain, and it's starting to lodge. I'd picked the lettuce just before it started raining, so it's kind of homely looking from being well picked. Also have kale in this row, a red kale variety is first time to try here in the middle. It grows well, tastes pretty good, but insects love it, so I don't know if I'll grow it again. And then on the far end is older blue dwarf kale and some younger plants down on this end. The insects don't bother it as much, so it's been a pretty good variety. And then you can see in between some romaine. I believe that's a baby romaine variety. Paris Island romaine down on the end, and then some more kale, more lettuce, and onions. Put in a yellow onion and a red onion this year, and just before I planted them, it was pretty dry, and I watered them in, and then the day after I planted them, we had a week of rain, and it was kind of strange that the purple, the one closest to the camera, the row closest to the camera, withstood the rain pretty well. The yellow on the farther row pretty much started to rot, so I lost several in that row during the rains. Here I have a holdover from the fall garden, cabbage and broccoli, planted too late in the fall, so it didn't mature in early winter. So I left it, and I've got a couple of broccoli spears, small ones, but that's probably all I'm going to get before I pull them up to put something else in for this spring. On the far end, I just planted sweet corn in 3 rows in the lower sections there, and after it comes up well, then I'll pull the higher part of the bed over around the row of corn. I have a tree out here if anyone's got a suggestion. Had it about 7 years, grew it from a 1-gallon pot basically, and it's some people call them China plum. I've seen them called Chinese plum, also known as loquat. Don't know what to do here. It's I would have expected to have fruit by now, and so far no fruit. If anybody's got an idea how long it takes for fruit for these, or how to improve my chances of getting fruit, the last 3 years I've fertilized it pretty heavily, and other than make foliage, that's about all it's done. As I said, I just built my polytunnel. It's probably most of you will say it's a little overbuilt, but we're in the hurricane zone, and so I'm hoping that at most I would lose the cover during a hurricane, but I don't want to have to take it down. Take a tour. Primarily, I built the tunnel for extending my season for tomatoes. This unwieldy plant here I started last September just as a test, and it grew well through the winter. Of course, I had to protect it from the couple of freezes that we get here, but we don't generally get real cold weather. it grew well and it set fruit, but the fruit wouldn't ripen, of course. So when I moved it in here in the polytunnel early February, the fruit started ripening, and I've been picking tomatoes since the end of February, and you can see there a couple pretty large ones left, and as soon as they're ripe, I'll recycle this pot into this year's tomato plants. Got some Romas down here that I've just stuck out in 1 gallon pots until I can put them in larger pots. Then I have several Celebrities, variety that's planted in South Louisiana where I live quite often. I've never grown them, so thought I'd try them. And then I've got several cherry tomatoes and several grape tomatoes. I think that one is a grape. The Celebrity, these little short guys compared to the other ones, they look like they're doing pretty well, but they're not growing in height like I would have expected. And then here we've got, I think, a grape tomato there, and that's a cherry. Since I had the polytunnel and follow the YouTube channels of Baking Soda and Allotment Diary, they kind of encouraged me to try potatoes. I've never done potatoes at all, and here the soil is very high in clay, and the water table is very high, sometimes right up to the surface. So I've never even considered trying them here, but looking at their videos and planting in pots, I said, well, I'll give it a try since I've got the polytunnel. So that's one of my tests for this year. So far, so good. Over here I've got a test of the loose leaf lettuce. These are Green Stars primarily. I had the larger ones you see there. I've picked the lettuce off of them twice now, but they're not getting as large as they do out in the garden. So I moved them from a 4-inch pot up to a 1 gallon pot just to see if that made any difference. And so we'll see. Here I have some flowers that were germinating in the cracks of my sidewalk in the front of my house. Don't know what flower it is. My wife planted them a few years ago and they put out seeds everywhere, so thought I'd try to save some of them, maybe replant. And then after watching video on banana shallots on YouTube, I decided I'd give that a try. So that's what these are, and been waiting for a drying out period outside in the garden so I can put them out in the garden. They're still pretty small, but they've been up now for about a month, and again I'm starting to wonder if my potting media is part of my problem that I'm having here. Here's a baby romaine variety, and the first two, the large plants there, first two that I planted did real well, so I planted these other 6, and you can see from the lower leaves yellowing, they're not doing as well. My potting media, I went out to my local big box store when I was planning to do the potatoes and bought a bunch of their bagged potting media that is, I would say, on the cheaper end. When I got it home, I wasn't happy with the way it looked. It was very sandy and had some bark in it, and other than that, that was about all it had. So I've been mixing 1 bag of that low-scale potting mix with a half a bag of cow manure compost mix, and then about a standard bucket full of perlite, and then about a standard bucket full of peat moss, and mix it all together. And those 7-gallon pots there are kind of examples of what it looks like afterward. It holds water pretty well, but it's either really wet or really dry, and I can't get it to stay the in-between very well. So greenhouses are new to me, so I'm just trying to figure it out as I go. In the greenhouse, you can see my bow spacing is pretty close compared to most. It's not a standard 4 feet. It's more like, I think it ends up being about 38 inches, a little more than 3 feet. And I use the gray electrical conduit, 1-inch conduit, and I've got a lot of cross bracing, stiffening, and then I've got a lot of wood on each end, and I have one of the auto opening windows on that end, and then of course this end is the personnel door that just clear. So far I've been real happy with the polytunnel. It's been a lot of fun to play with, but still don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, that's kind of a look at my gardening operation. Please, if you have comments or suggestions, please leave them for me. Thanks a lot, guys.